Hello, my name is Shirley Self, and I'm here to talk astrology. Today I wanted to talk about our current president, Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a moon phase 14. It's over here, just before the brilliance and the beauty of the full moon. The full moon is called Beauty by Yeats, and the moon phase 14 is the obsessed one. Obsessed with what? With self-perfection. Obsessed with polishing up this human being that is self-created. Polishing his, getting ready for prime time. Moon phase 14 is not quite ready for prime time. And moon phase 14 has a body of fate over here at moon phase 2, the violent moon phase 2. It has the mask over here in the reclusive, meditative moon phase 28, the fool. And the creative genius is up there in moon phase 16, a phase of intellectual brilliance and creativity. So that's a moon phase 14 for you. I am a moon phase 14, are busy trying to perfect ourselves. Moon phase 13, their job, remember moon phase 12 went into the depths of him herself and discovered what it could become by striving. And so that striving continues in moon phase 13, which tries to bring forth its newfound genius and to free itself from emotional contamination by the world. Moon phase 14 is continuing this struggle to bring forth what is in the imagination, what is your ideal you, and its main job is to become independent of other people's thinking, to learn to think for yourself. So that's a moon phase 14, and this is our moon phase 14. Let me adjust things a little bit. This is Donald Trump. His information is he was born the 14th of June in 1946 at 10:54 a.m. and in Jamaica, New York, USA. So the Donald Trump here is, let's just analyze it for modality and the energies. It is, he has no earth in this chart. And therefore earth is emphasized in his attitude and in his thinking. And so stuff is his thing. Becoming rich and being rich, and the power of that wealth is his major impetus in the world. I had a friend, dearly departed friend, who had no heir, and she had one of the largest private libraries I have ever been in. It took up one huge room of her house. It was a joy to be in that library. She had no heir, but she had a library. Trump has no earth, but he has Mar-a-Lago and golf courses all over the world, hotels, houses, and so he has stuff. He has the only powerful stuff he has is there on the midheaven, and so power is one of his issues, and that would be would come from his material wealth. He has 5 cardinal planets, which makes him pushy, but impatient and thoughtless. He has 2 fixed planets, and because if the more fixed signs you have, the more stubborn you are in who you think you are and what you think you know. And so only 2 fixed planets there, Pluto and Mars, means that he's easily swayed by others. and especially others who tell him that they adore him, because love is a real issue with a Leo rising. And he is a Leo rising, and look at that Mars, that powerful Mars right there on the cusp of the first house. So that Mars on the ascendant means I'm for me first, and because it's square the midheaven, the Mars at 26 degrees is square the midheaven at 24 degrees. Because it's square the midheaven, he needs to be important. And he has a strong wish to dominate his world, dominate others. He's quick to take offense. Mars on this line is quick to take offense, and our Donald has Mars there, and the United States has some Mars there, and so he's very much like the United States, very quick to take offense. He gets into needless conflicts because of that Mars square the midheaven. He's impulsive. He has a Jupiter square Saturn. The Jupiter is right down here in the second house, and the Saturn's up there in the 11th, right there. And Jupiter square Saturn, Saturn rules a businessman, and this is not a good businessman. Saturn is not in Capricorn right here; it's in Cancer, and so he's getting ready for his second Saturn return. So it makes him a dishonest businessman, not just a bad businessman, but a dishonest businessman. The Jupiter is square Uranus. No, it's trine Uranus, sorry. And that makes him rich. And the Jupiter in this second house of money should make him rich in relationships, but he's not. He's very poor in relationships. He's got Chiron there in the second house of valuable relationships, and the Neptune there. So he's lost some relationships that were important to him, and he keeps other relationships that are just there for the money. His Venus is in Cancer, up there by that Saturn. And Venus in Cancer tends to be sentimental, not particularly loving or affectionate. And Venus in Cancer, because it's, Venus in Cancer is insecure. Anything you put into Cancer is insecure. The moon is probably the best thing to have in Cancer, because the moon feels like it can do something about it. But Cancer is your security. And he's got those 3 planets in Cancer, and they are intercepted, at least in this Placidus. They're intercepted. And so they're kind of hidden. And the Mercury is insecure. He's insecure in what he knows. And notice that the Mercury is square the Neptune. So there's basic insecurity all over the place. And because the Saturn's right in there, there's an incredible amount of selfishness too. So the Venus up there with Saturn, anytime you get that kind of a negative Venus-Saturn connection, you've got some problem with love. A lack of love is here. So he's got a Pluto. His Pluto is right there in the 12th house. It's a hard place to have Pluto. It gives you nightmares virtually. And he has nightmares about what he has done. But that, I think, is why he tries to never be alone. I have a feeling that he sleeps with the TV on, or the radio, although I'm not sure he's into that old technology. He definitely sleeps with his phone. So, and it's hard to keep secrets if you've got a Pluto in the 12th. And the Pluto's in Leo, and Leo's on the cusp of the 12th, so that makes it even more difficult to keep secrets. If the Pluto were in Cancer in the 12th, it would be easier for him to hide his whatever he needs to hide. That he has a lot of power, this person. He has powerful beliefs and convictions. That's down there in the Jupiter in the second house. And the conjunction to Chiron helps that. But he's insecure in them. Notice that they're ruled, the Jupiter, the Chiron. And that is, that's Juno and Neptune, are all ruled by this terribly insecure and unloved and unloving Venus. So, let's see what else. Let me have a sip of water here. So he is self-obsessed, but I think that he thinks he's already perfect. I think he thinks he's already at the full moon beauty. And he's not. He still has a lot of work to do, and he doesn't do that work. Why doesn't he do that? Well, remember the mask, the way you do what you need to do is, and the mask is over here, right there. And it's got Fortuna there. That mask is wanting him to distance himself. See, he's always... That's the difference between Leo and Aquarius. As Aquarius stands at the edge of the thing and looks and watches and learns. It's called objectivity. Whereas Leo is right in the midst of things, stirring up things, and virtually leading things. So what he doesn't have is he doesn't have time alone. He doesn't have time to meditate on what he's done and how it was received, and meditate on his actions. That's absolute key to Moon Phase 14 learning how to be this new person that was born back in Moon Phase 12. Working on self-perfection. If you can't stand to be alone and can't stand to cogitate on reflect and ruminate on what you've been doing, you're not going to learn from what you've been doing. And I think that he avoids that Pluto in the 12th house at all costs. The Mars is a square the parental line here. This is his midheaven and his IC. This is home, and there's his public person up there. So what you've got here actually is father and mother. And what we have here is Regulus. This is a fixed star, a very mighty and powerful and heavy-duty fixed star. It's called the Watcher of the North, I think. And it has recently moved out of Leo into Virgo because it's the heart of the lion, and the lion is the leader. We've got a emphasis now from Leo, which is very, very male, into Virgo, which is more female. So the Regulus has moved, but the Donald, it was right there when the Donald was born, and it gives him a tremendous amount of power. Misused, that energy is, and it's so very, very easy to misuse. I actually know a couple of people who have it prominently, like Donald does, and who use it to excellent effect. And but misusing it can lead to a fall and a miserable death. So he's got his Mars there, square the parental line. Now up there on the midheaven at 24 Taurus is another fixed star. And while Regulus over here is one of the most powerful and can be very powerful for good, Caput Algol is right there on the midheaven, and Caput Algol is considered the most evil star in the firmament. So the he's got that on that's his mother. Caput Algol is the severed head of the Medusa. It turns you to stone. It's a very, very difficult. It's the star of losing your head. John Denver had, I don't remember what had progressed or what had hit that Algol in his chart, but it was very prominent in his death, and he lost his head when his experimental plane crashed. So we've got this aggressive little Mars here in square to the parents, and this kid was a handful. And I don't think Mom liked him. We've got Algol up there, which is ruled by that Venus, that insecure Venus, in conjunct Saturn, which makes it just, if that's your mom, that's a very unloving mom. And mothering down there in the 4th house, and that's a good place to have your moon, it's in Sagittarius and conjunct the South Node. And so you've got a mom who's gone, who's not emotionally available to you. And so he didn't ever learn to deal with these emotions, and is still probably about 3 years old emotionally. Or 2. Anyway, so that's his mother. His father is ruled by that Mars on the IC, or ruled by Mars. And there's that Mars. And I think that Mars was, here I've given you all of this, and you had better make me proud. You had better make me proud. You better do what I tell you to do. And we've got here a child who was, you might say, disobedient and contrary. A moon phase 14 is kind of contrary, just basically contrary. And it gives you, me, being a 14, kind of an advantage of whatever you hear, there's just always going on in your head is, yeah? Oh, yeah? And it gives you a kind of demands that you think for yourself. But because Donald Trump does not think for himself, cannot think for himself. Why? Because he's too, well, the Mercury is insecure, and it's square Neptune, so he never accomplished the way his parents wanted him to do. He didn't do good in school. He's more of a subjective learner than he and I are use the subconscious more. And it kind of guides us into the right thing, except that his is square to Neptune, and that can be that can lead him into, because the fear is behind it. The Mercury up there, his insecurity is behind it. It's very easy for him to delude himself, and moon phase 14. What you have to do is you have to learn to obsess. 14 is called the obsessed one, and you have to learn to obsess on what's important for you. And he's not able to do that. He's not able to focus those energies on, because of the Neptune square, the Mercury. He would learn in a whole different way. He should have been an apprentice himself instead of hiring apprentices. Apprenticed himself to a thinker. And then he would have learned to think for himself. But just to be around people who know how to do stuff or have figured things out is very beneficial to a Mercury Neptune affliction, and very beneficial to a Mercury Neptune sextile or trine. But so he didn't accomplish the way his parents expected him to, and they were both immigrants, you know. It's just his hostility to immigrants. He's married an immigrant. His moon is in Sagittarius down there, and Sagittarius are foreigners. So he's got a grudge. I don't know. Maybe it's this. The last person in should close the door. I get a lot of that. I actually have a lot of that. Living in Colorado, which is being overwhelmed now by immigrants. So I can kind of relate to anti-immigrant sentiment. But let's face it, we're all immigrants here. Immigration is what killed off the Indians. But we're such a conglomeration that we've got incredible versatility in our available to us to figure out our problems. But what Donald Trump has is that Mercury-Neptune square, and just allows his imagination to run amok. And because of that, Pluto in the 12th is a very fearful Pluto, and he does nothing to reduce that fear. He does nothing to come to terms with that heavy-duty Pluto sitting in his 12th house, in his subconscious. So those, I'll bet they had trouble even potty training that kid. So his body of fate is over there in the 8th house. That's right. Where is it? Body of fate's right in here. And that's loss, and that's painful violence, and that's he mentioned at one time, I heard he mentioned, I don't watch Donald Trump, I can't stand to look at him. He mentioned the loss of a sibling, and it looks to me like the sibling, and perhaps the sibling he lost, was the only love this young man could count on. That because the Jupiter in Libra, and Libra rules that house of siblings, the 3rd house. So that Jupiter in Libra is ruled by the Venus in Cancer, conjunct Saturn. That insecure Venus had evidently and there is a kind of a secondary rulership of Libra by the Saturn. Saturn is exalted in Libra. And so there was comfort. This sibling was very comforting, and I think loved the Donald Trump. Mentored him. Notice that the Venus-Saturn is up there in the 11th house, which is where you find your mentors. And a friend. And evidently that was lost. And it affected him deeply. A sun in Gemini. Gemini, I don't have any Gemini. And I'm always perpetually amazed at the need they have for relationship. The need, they hate to be alone. I'm an Aquarius with a South Node in Aries, and alone is my natural bent. So, but this Gemini, loss of that friendship, loss of that comfort, and Venus needs comfort, must have been a terrible shock to this sun in Gemini. And it changed him. The Uranus up there in Gemini can make amazing, amazing changes. It could have gone from, I doubt he'd ever been a really nice kid because he's a bully, the Mars in the first house. Compensates for all his insecurity and fear, the Pluto there. Compensates by being a bully, by being aggressive. The best defense is a good attack. And the Venus feels like she needs defended. The Pluto feels like it needs defended. So he doesn't trust himself. He doesn't have deep convictions that guide him. He's unreliable. He makes promises. Mercury, Neptune square, makes promises and doesn't keep them. But he's scrupulous in his emotional relationships. That is characteristic of a moon phase 14, even when they're out of phase, is they can let everybody down, but those people that they're emotionally committed to, and that would be the Donald's family, is all he's got to be committed to. The South Node there in Sagittarius, and the moon in the 4th house of family. So he hates himself for his fears and for his failures. And so he denies them, because love is what this guy is all about. Please love me. Please love me. And he will perform for anybody that does the loving him. And the only people that love him, evidently, is his family. The religious right loves him. He is what they call a flawed tool of God, rolling back everything, every progress this country has made toward taking care of all the people. And he's busy rolling back the caring for our lands, caring for the world. All those advances that the past administration made toward reducing our impact on the climate, on the environment. He's eliminating all that. And I think it's because there was some terrible connection between him and Obama. I should look at their horoscopes. Obama was Obama was a Leo, North Node in Leo, South Node in Aquarius. And I think that the Donald is racist and jealous. And that's why he undertook to attack Obama. But anyway, he's. Let's hope this assault on our country doesn't last very long, because he's doing terrible damage. He's a very, very powerful person. Those fixed stars on his ascendant and midheaven, the two most important points in the horoscope, the ascendant and the midheaven, have this tremendous power on them. And so he can avoid, by picking and choosing who he appears to, he can avoid all those people who don't agree with him and get rid of all those people who don't agree with him. He's a powerful man. He's a powerful man. He could be a savior. As Bill Maher said, look, if you would turn all our efforts toward the environment and climate change, I would vote for you. Well, hell, so would I. I would vote for anybody who would actually bravely, we can't do this by half measures, bravely attack the difficulties we and the rest of the world are facing. Well, that's the Donald. Was there anything else I wanted to tell you about this man? His creative genius. His creative genius is in the on the cusp of the 2nd house, right there. This is creative genius. This is a body of fate over here. This is his creative genius, and it's in Virgo, the late 26 degrees of Virgo. And that is really close to our own, the United States' own creative genius, which is at 23 degrees of Virgo. And so he could do what needs to be done for this country. He has the power. He just doesn't have the emotional stability or the mental freedom. Because look at that Uranus up there, conjunct. This man is a transformer. And he's got a bunch of septiles. Let's see what he's got. Mars is septile Jupiter. The Mercury is septile to the ascendant. And Pluto is septile to Uranus. This man could transform the future. You know, septiles are division by 7, and they have to do with the change. They have to do with the waves that of ideas that change the future, that change, that promote change of the future. And he has the ability, maybe not the ability, but he has the potential for being that change, for leading that change. Leo on the ascendant wants to be a leader, demands to be a leader. And Mars is, I'm gonna lead you whether you want to go or not. And the Sun, North Node, and Uranus up there, he could make a change, but he'd have to change himself. And in order to change himself, he would have to deal with that terrible Pluto in the 12th house. Well, yeah, that's the Donald. And I hope you are all surviving this and working to change things, because we all have that power. We all have a necessity to sacrifice and to, what they call it, lean in. And God and Goddess bless your leaning in, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.